now, America First Legal General Counsel Gene Hamilton, also civil rights attorney Leo Terrell. Gentlemen, it's great to have you back on. The reaction is coming in to the breaking news, Gene. New York Judge Engoron orders former President Trump to pay a $354.8 million penalty in the New York civil fraud case. What do you say to this, Gene? What do you think?
Liz, this is a fundamental miscarriage of justice. This case involves, for the folks at home, alleged allegations of fraud in which Donald Trump has now been liable to pay $354 million. But no one was actually defrauded. No one is out any money. This entire thing is a bogus sham investigation built upon this theory, in part, that somehow, some way, it helps the business environment in the state of New York to create this type of a practice that ensures that people are being as accurate as possible with their papers. But this destroys confidence in the business environment in New York. $350 million against a political opponent of the sitting attorney general, I couldn't think of anything more disastrous.
You know, yeah, what Gene said, Leo, the former president also banned from serving as a business officer or a director in New York State for 3 years. It also hits his children, too. Don Jr., Eric Trump, banned for 2 years. Letitia James wanted a full ban for Trump. You know, this was done without a jury. Only the judge decided it was fraud before Trump's attorneys mounted their own defense, Leo.
Yeah, and Liz, let me add a few other points. This law was being applied to Trump. No other business had ever had this law applied in this manner. Secondly, where's the correlation between the so-called liability and the damages? There was no victim. No one was injured. People made money. And I will submit to you, if Donald Trump was not running for president, Liz, this case would not exist. One final point. Letitia James ran for attorney general on the premise, I'm going to get Donald Trump. Didn't know what he did wrong, but I'm going to get him. This is a political hack job solely because President Trump, Donald Trump, the future president, is running for president.
You know, to what Leo just said, let's bring in Tom Dupre. Tom, we read through the court filings. We read through this case. Doesn't this point out the dangers of this obscure New York State law? It is very loose. The Associated Press looked at nearly 70 years of cases here, found nothing like the size of this one. Tom, couldn't an appellate court overturn or modify this fine as disproportionate? Because, you know, what's the restitution for? The state didn't identify any victim losses. The New York law doesn't require a showing of any victims or harm or damages or that anyone was defrauded. Doesn't even require proof of intent to defraud. Usually for things like a murder conviction, you need a victim's body. You didn't have that here. What do you think?
Well, I think that vague laws and aggressive prosecutors can be a dangerous combination. And I think this case illustrates, to your point, what can happen when you have people engaged in at least what they consider ordinary business dealings, and it ultimately results in a judgment that probably will be north of $400 million with interest plus prohibition on conducting business. And look, your question, I do think that the Trump defense team will have strong arguments on appeal. I think it's an uphill battle, no question. But I think they can argue that the judge just fundamentally misunderstood what evaluation involves and that he took what's an ordinary business disagreement and made it, you know, a basis for a $400 million judgment. And I think the Trump defense team can argue very strongly that even if the judgment of fraud itself should stand, the amount of this penalty is excessive, disproportionate, and should be reduced.
So let's stay with Tom for just a second. Gene and Leo, I'll come back to you in just a second. Trump says the banks were paid in full. Leo was just talking about this. Trump says his financial statements had a 100% disclaimer, non-reliance clause. But the judge said Trump can still be liable despite those disclaimers. I mean, the Manhattan DA looked at the same evidence, that office there, declined to charge Trump. Now, I want to read this to you from the filing, Tom. The judge says they are, quote, accused only of inflating asset values to make more money, that they're incapable of admitting the error of their ways, that their, quote, refusal to admit error constrains this court to conclude they will engage in it going forward unless judicially restrained. So this is like a minority report verdict, right? I mean, decision. He's saying they were fraudulent, we have to stop them, so we're going to really pound them.
Yeah, and there's a few interesting things going on here, Liz. One, to your point, is that this is unlike pretty much any other fraud case I can think of in the sense that it seems to be pretty much a victimless crime. The banks themselves weren't coming into court saying that they were defrauded. They felt they were ripped off. And so it makes it very unusual. Even if prosecutors can bring charges or claims based on kind of a so-called victimless crime, they often, as a matter of discretion, elect not to. Obviously, Tish James had her interest. She campaigned on this issue, so she did bring the charges. The other thing is that I do think the Court of Appeals will probably consider the fact that you don't have the banks coming in saying that they were victimized by the scheme and deciding whether the penalty is excessive. You could see a Court of Appeals saying, look, maybe he overvalued, maybe he shouldn't have done it, but does it really warrant such an extreme, unusual, and in my view, unique sanction?
What Tom just said, come in, Gene Hamilton. What do you think about the appellate court? Because what's the path going forward, Gene? Because the New York law, this obscure law, basically said that, you know, it's about restitution and damages, but the New York law said you don't have to show a victim here. So what's the restitution for?
Yeah, look, Tom and Leo have made great points. The restitution apparently is just part of the witch hunt. This is part of Letitia James's persecution of Donald Trump because he's a political opponent. And so this $354 million that he's supposedly on the line for is about money that they say that he defrauded this nebulous unknown entity that doesn't actually even exist. The state was not defrauded. And yet somehow the state is going to get, if they prevail in this judgment, $354 million unjustly. I think that any appeals court, regardless, there's a number of grounds on which someone could appeal this decision, I think will overturn this judgment at the very least as to the amount of the fine.
Got it. So let's come back to Leo Terrell. You know, Leo, you were pointing out how New York State Attorney General Letitia James campaigned on going after Trump, calling him, quote, a con man, promising to direct a, quote, bright light into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. But, you know, Leo, Judge Engoron acknowledges no victim of Trump's fraud. No one lodged a complaint. There was no one complaining here. No one otherwise claimed damages. Deutsche Bank did not file for damages. So what's the restitution for?
Just the restitution is an indirect way, Liz, to stop President Trump from running for president. I can't say it any clearer. But I'll sit here and say this. There is a due process argument because of the excessive nature of the size of the award. The reason why I bring that up is because Trump could have an argument beyond the New York State Court appeals to the Supreme Court. There is precedent for this when the damages are so excessive, it denies an individual due process.
Okay, let's stay on this. Tom, take up what Leo just said. Due process violations here, could it go to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, it absolutely could. And Leo's absolutely right. I mean, there's a fairly robust body of law out there that says when the state imposes a sanction on someone, it can be a criminal sanction, it can be a civil sanction like a fine, that there are constitutional limits that come into play and that cap and limit the amount of punishment you can impose on someone. And courts have to take a fresh look at the record and look at the conduct that was alleged and say, is this really worthy of such an extreme sanction? The other thing I'd point out, Liz, is keep in mind that the trial judge in this case initially imposed an even more severe sanction on former President Trump by canceling his business licenses. You'll recall when that issue went up on appeal, the appellate court said not so fast, and they put that portion of the order on hold, sending a signal to the trial judge that he might have gone too far. And that's why I think in today's order, he doesn't have any permanent cancellation, but it's more limited 2 or 3 year cancellation.
Stay on that for a second. So the appellate court pushed back because this obscure New York law didn't say that you can go ahead and cancel someone's business licenses or just void out their LLCs. Is that right?
Yeah, well, what the Court of Appeals basically said is that this is just not appropriate. At least they strongly suggested that. They didn't provide elaborate reasoning. But when the trial judge said, I'm going to cancel Trump's licenses, the Court of Appeals specifically froze that order. They stayed it, they held it up, and so it never went into effect. And I think what happened here, Liz, is that the trial judge saw the writing on the wall, that the Court of Appeals concluded he had overstepped initially in imposing too severe a sanction on Trump. And that's why today's order, he walked it back from what he originally had wanted to do.
That's very interesting. Gene, come in on this. If you were a business owner in New York State, what would you think about this verdict? Or this decision,
Liz,
rather, not verdict. There's no jury, it's a decision.
Sure,
Go ahead.
Of course. Yeah, look, if I'm a business owner or if I'm an attorney at a big law firm advising business clients in the state of New York, I would say get the heck out. it's time to leave. It's time to pack up and go, because you don't know when it's going to be you. You might think that this is only about Donald Trump, but all it takes, if this decision is allowed to stand, is for Letitia James to decide that she doesn't like you. She doesn't like something you stand for, and she can initiate and oversee and prosecute a bogus case against you, the process of which is going to cost you hundreds of millions of dollars, likely in counsel fees and all kinds of other things. And it could result in the loss of your business license to do business in the state of New York. So you know what? Pack up, go home. It's time to leave.
What do you think, Leo?
Oh, Gene is absolutely right. Basically, what we're seeing here, Liz, is the weaponization of law. I've been a lawyer for 30 years. What's happening to Trump is historic. What the Democrats are doing is basically saying we're going to use the power of the legal system to go after our political opponents. And what Gene has just said is what I fear, that the party in power will use the legal system, which makes us so unique, so special above every other country, and turn into a banana republic and basically go after opponents because you don't like them. Not because of justice, but because you just don't like them.
Got it. Tom Dupre, final word. When you saw the size of the fine vis-a-vis the allegations about inflated assets and fraud, does it match what they found in what the judge and Letitia James are saying in the court filings?
Look, it's hard to make a connection between the amount of this sanction and the facts. And I think part of it is because you don't have a bank standing there testifying in court saying we lost $320 million because of it. And so for that reason, the amount of these sanctions is inherently somewhat arbitrary. I think the thing to keep in mind here, Liz, is that today's defeat for President Trump is not the final say. This is the first step in what I am confident will be a long appellate process as this case winds its way up through the New York courts and possibly ends either in a reversal of today's decision or at a minimum, a reduction in the amount of the fine.
Do you think it could go to the Supreme Court?
I think there's a good chance. If this decision sticks, this is the sort of case that would definitely get the Supreme Court's attention if they're not already exhausted by hearing all sorts of other election-related disputes by that point.
That's right. Tom Dupre, so smart. So is Leo, Terrell and Gene Hamilton. Gentlemen, thank you so much for helping us out with that story.